Quick show of hands. How many people want more growth in their business? Hold them up really high. Cool. How many people want more revenue? Sweet. All right, cool. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to deliver any of those. I won't be able to help you on anything. But if there's anything I know is when you bring like-minded people together, great things can happen. As Ian mentioned, my name is Dan Martell. I'm going to be talking about growth strategies. Really, I'm going to cover three main things. I'm going to talk about how to kind of build out your analytics in your dashboard and try to understand what things to measure. Try to think about two real big buckets of strategy. And then the third thing is how to prioritize those ideas that you come up with to get the biggest bang for your buck. Before I go too much further, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I know time's your most precious resources, especially as founders. So I want to thank you for that. So I'm committed to giving you 110%. And second, I want to thank Phil and Rebecca and everybody for organizing the sponsors. Let's give them a big round of applause. So how many of you guys have one of these? Pull them out. Can you just pull it out real quick and hold up high? Android, iPhone, BlackBerry. Sorry to hear. Cool. What I'm going to ask you guys to do, because we're really shitty at this in Canada, is to take a photo right now. So pull it back out, take a photo. I'm going to do it to you guys. And share the story. I believe the hashtag is Startupfest. Because everybody says it, so I'm actually going to do something about it. We need to get better at Canadians to share our stories, tell people what we're up to, what we're learning, to try to get other Canadians to do the same thing. So take pictures. If I say something crazy, tweet it out. Hashtags growth hacking. My Twitter handle is @Dan Martell. It'd be something that I really appreciate. So before, see, I can't, okay, so this is it. No. Allô? En français? Okay, cool. So, first and foremost, Canadian, ridiculously proud Canadian. I spent 6 years in the Valley, and the first thing I would tell people within 10 seconds is that I'm Canadian. Born and raised in a place called Moncton, New Brunswick, which usually gets people to stop. Yeah, do we have, what? Somebody's from Moncton here? No, see, I know you're lying. But the Real Housewives and being from Moncton. But born and raised, super proud. I've built a few companies. I hate the word serial entrepreneur because it sounds like I have ADD, which I do. But I just love building things. So I've built 5 companies. The first company I built was a vacation rental site, which sounds like a great idea, but turns out when you pick a market the size of 200 cottages, I call it maritimevacation.ca. So I actually did well. I got about 60, so that's like a little under half of the market size. But I did make my first dollar on the internet. I learned a lot of stuff. Then I did a web hosting company because anybody that builds websites goes, well, fuck, I'm making some money off of this stuff instead of paying somebody else. So I borrowed $10,000 from my brother's line of credit, started a hosting website. And I will say this, if you want any personal time in your life whatsoever, do not start a web hosting company. The biggest mistake I had, we actually closed a bank as a customer. So I was doing 24/7 support of email databases and their e-commerce site at 19 years old. So that was really stupid. But again, I was in the game. I kept doing it. At 24, I started a company called Spheric Technologies, an enterprise portal company. Grew that to about 30 employees in 4 years, won a bunch of awards, learned how to make money, which is a good thing. And then eventually got acquired in early 2008. Some people think I'm a genius. It's 100% luck. I have no idea about markets and timing. I just got lucky there. And then after that, I did all that stuff in Moncton. I thought to myself, like, I should probably go see what the Valley's all about. And you hear all these things about how great Silicon Valley is. You read about TechCrunch. Some people call it Walt Disneyland for nerds. And it turns out it actually is. So in September 2008, I packed up everything I owned, sold the rest, and moved to the Valley. And what was neat for me is I get to spend the first, I was there to kind of learn. And I get to spend the first 3 or 4 months meeting some of the smartest people in the world around marketing and distribution. Because I figured, regardless what you build, the number one skill set you want to learn is marketing. How do you position the product, get distribution, and scale it? Because building's kind of the easy thing, right? I was a developer as background. But I wanted to understand kind of these new things. So I met guys like Sean Ellis, who invented the term growth hacker, Eric Ries, the lean startup. These are all the guys that I met, Heaton Shaw, Dave McClure when he came out with Pirate Metrics. All these guys I was fortunate enough to meet in the first 4 or 5 months that I was there and really started shaping my view. Now, what's interesting about that is I ended up starting a company called Flowtown, and this is what the graph looked like. So I love this term of often wrong, never in doubt, because I thought if you're a great marketer, no matter what you build, things are going to work. obviously from that graph you can see that we had no traction whatsoever, and eventually we figured it out. So everybody wants to know what happened at that point. The truth is we figured out product market fit. And I'm going to go over today, it's really about trying to understand how do you understand what is the core product value that you're offering, and then try to figure out how do you kind of front load that and continue the growth, because in today's world, building it doesn't mean anything. And a lot of you guys that have products out there that may not be getting the growth you're looking for, you realize like, hey, this is great product experience, but I'm not getting any growth. What really matters is making sure that you're solving a real problem for somebody in a way that's unique and differentiated. And then from that, you can do the rest of the stuff, which is the growth hacking. I shared a picture 2 days ago and said, if you want, for clarity, my current startup, and it was the exact same curve, kind of flat, flat, flat. And then now we've grown probably like 15x in the last 16 months. So I was like, hey, if you want to learn how to do that, come to my talk. So, I'm glad everybody came. But it's like that for a lot of entrepreneurs. So if you guys are in the flat part, you can't have a hockey stick without the flat part. So feel okay, right? So if you guys are there, you're in good company. We've all been there. And I guess I'll tell you, so Clarity, what I'm working on now, I've been doing it for 2 years, venture-backed. Austin Hill calls it phone sex for entrepreneurs. I don't know if you guys have checked out the site. I actually like the way he describes it that way because it makes a lot of sense, but we help entrepreneurs get quality advice over the phone from people who have been there before. 40,000 verified experts, a couple 100,000 calls, and we continue to grow. And a lot of the stuff that I've learned with Clarity Marketplace, I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. Traction. The shitty part about traction is everybody wants it, nobody knows how to describe it. So if you ever talk to an investor, the worst thing, it's kind of like I'm not that into you kind of response. When they say like, oh, come back when you have more traction, they can't tell you what that is. You're trying to figure out how to, not only what it is, how to make it move, and they won't even talk to you until you figure that out. I've got 16 slides and about another 30 minutes to go through. So really what I want to do is kind of plant some seeds on some things you should consider, talk to you about the tactical stuff, and then I'll be here for today and tomorrow. So if you guys want to talk about your specific situation or learn more about how we approached it, I'd love to do that. So for me, traction is kind of what the current market is looking at. So the best way to understand if you have product traction is there's this great survey called the Customer Development Survey. If you go to survey.io, they outline a bunch of questions. And the question you want to kind of pivot on or pinpoint on is called the very disappointed question. And Sean Ellis created it, one of the guys that created the growth hacking term. And it asks a simple question to your users: how disappointed would you be if we can no longer use your product? And the answers are great. It's like somewhat disappointed, or very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed. What the fuck is your product? Like, I forgot, And you'll get that answer, and you're just like, this is great. Somebody responded to a survey, and they actually have no clue about the company that sent it out. But the answer of very disappointed is the one that will tell you if you've got a there, if the dog can hunt, or if there's anything in your product. So if you look at that, if you get 100 answers and you're about 40 of those people answer very disappointed, and to give you guys context, if I asked you about Dropbox and said, how disappointed would you be if I took it away from you? How many people are very disappointed? Okay, because of that is why there's so much growth in their product. Even if they did nothing to optimize product flows and leverage other people's networks, which I'll get into, the product on its own is a must-have product, and I can't think of a better thing to give you guys as a litmus test to try to see if your current customers actually want what you're selling or appreciate the solution you're solving for. So that, to me, is traction. I sit down with entrepreneurs. I remember I met Josh. I don't know if Josh, are you in this room? I just saw him sitting out there. He doesn't want to lift his hand. Josh emails me. I've never met this guy before. He launched his startup on Cashmore startup. Pete Cashmore is anybody? Mashable. Launches on Mashable, gets 1,500 signups, all excited, cold emails me, damn Martell, I'd love to talk to you. I've got 1,500 signups. I don't know what to do. I think I should raise a round, but you would probably know, can we talk? And I'm like, whoa, calm your horses. I was excited for him because it's hard to get 1,500 people to even pay attention. So I said, why don't we sit down and have tea? So I meet him at the tea place, and he's like all excited. And if you find Josh Vickers and ask him about it 3 years ago. And he's an excited person, super energetic, and he's like talking to me about like, we're thinking of doing this and that, raise money. And I was like, first thing I'm going to get you to do is, do you have access to the database? Yes. Can you pull those email addresses of those 1,500 people? Yeah. It was probably a week after they had gotten the press. I said, great, grab the emails, drop them in the system, survey.io, it's free, and send the email out. And while he did that, I actually went and got some work done. So he's like sitting there at this table, and he's like sending out the emails, and he's like, why is he making me do this? And 45 minutes later, he comes back, he's like, hey, I got 10% response, this is great. I'm like, great, let's open it up. We look at the bar graph, like 3% very disappointed, 10% somewhat disappointed. A lot of people had never even gone further than signing up, and nobody gave a shit. Now, that's okay because there was some people there that actually would have been very disappointed and taken away. I think that is the most important thing for you as a founder to understand, is that if there's a there, then it's really to figure out that nugget and blow it out. I talk a lot about that in the kind of the core product value. So core product value is really trying to understand what is that thing that you do better than anybody else in the world. The best example that I've ever seen is Twitter. When Twitter was had launched and been around for 3 or 4 years, it was still not growing. And they brought in a guy named Josh Ellman to work on this. Josh had worked at LinkedIn and Facebook. And what was neat is I sat down with Josh one day and I said, what are you working on at Twitter? And he starts walking me through their thoughts around onboarding product. And I was like, cool, onboarding flows is a really good way to kind of set the expectation for a customer's experience. And I said, so you're going to do a bunch of the growth stuff, like, address book, integration and automatically sharing with your friends and all that stuff? He said, no. I said, well, how are you going to grow the product if you don't do that? And he says, well, here's my belief, is that every product has a core product value, and how you introduce the users to that value will dictate how they think about your product in the market. I was like, that makes no sense to me. Could you explain a bit further? And when he said, okay, well, if I did the first screen and I asked the user to connect with their friends, upload their address book, Gmail, connect, all this stuff, what would that tell the user our product was? I said, a social network. He goes, that's not what we are. I was like, interesting. I said, what are you guys? What are you then? He says, we're a content consumption product, right? How many people use Twitter for social networking? How many people use it to consume content? Exactly. Understanding your core product value will educate everything else. And if you don't try to figure out what that is, what you do in the market that people really want, then, and I'll teach you guys how to do that in a few slides, then they could actually never receive that. And if they don't receive the value, they don't talk about it, they don't come back, they don't use it. And it's no fun as a founder because you guys want to just get in there and build it and deploy it. But at the end of the day, there's some really hard work that has to go into trying to understand this center, this nugget. And from that, everything else from strategy, product roadmap, financing, growth will come from it. So don't underestimate this. Same thing for Facebook. They knew, and there's these new kind of magic formulas or magic ratios that come out for every company. Facebook knows that within the first 10 days, if you friend 7 friends, that you have a 95% chance of being retained. So what do you think their core product value is? It's connecting with friends. And the thing they need you to do more than anything in the first 10 days is to find 7 of those. And they know that if you do that, you will be a retained user. Twitter knows that if they can get you to follow up to 10 people that create great content, that you'll go back and check out the content and get a lot of value from Twitter. LinkedIn has the same number. So once you get Ninja, it takes a while, you can actually understand what is that core ratio, that magic ratio for you, for your users, that is all you want to do for those people in the first user experience is get them to experience core value, and then they'll come back and use it, and you can do other things to keep them there. Another example so you guys can get some context. Instagram's core value is what? Photos. But what they did better than anybody else is they were the fastest way to take a photo and share it on social networks. That's it. That is it. I will guarantee you today, till to this day, there's no app out there that is faster to take a photo, make it pretty, and share it on many social networks. That is the core that they do. Now you can follow, you can friend, there's an activity stream. All those things are retention features, but they were not the core product value that they did first and foremost, and people get those things confused. This is what I love about entrepreneurs when they're building these new products and I ask them how they're going to monetize. They come up with these super elaborate ways that's never been done ever, and they think it's innovation. And I go, okay, you could do that. You could go spend the next 16 months trying to build this new business model that's never been tested and proven, and also try to build a product that people love. Or you can do what I do, which I called R&D, Rob and Duplicate, is find somebody that's perfected the business model, the R&D part, and adopt it. And never, until I saw this diagram, have I been more excited for entrepreneurs that you now have access to the business models. Alistair and Ben Yoskovitz wrote a book called Lean Analytics, and in it, they went and investigated all the business models online and not only tell you about how to build product and think about the customer discovery, core product value, and the unique one metric, but give you diagrams like this one. I remember I was working on Clarity. We're a two-sided market. We have supply side and demand side. And we were trying to figure this out ourselves, having no experience in building a marketplace. And Ben sends me the draft of his book. And this is like on page 70-something. And when I saw it, it was like this religious moment. It was like, oh, and I was just like, holy fuck. I like printed it off, put it in front of every engineer's desk. I was like, this is the map of everything we do. And I will show you later how we've taken this and essentially just instrumented this. So don't try to work harder than you have to be. It's okay to be lazy. Spend the time on the product, but the business model and the metrics have already been figured out. Measure. Or as Dave McClure, I don't know if you guys know Dave McClure, he's speaking tomorrow. Dave has a better way of saying measure. Some people say, don't change it if you can't measure it. Dave says, if it's not fucking working, stop fucking changing until you can fucking measure it. That's Dave. And it makes so much sense. A lot of founders are in this flat part where they're not growing. So what do? They go to the team, they get excited, they rally around new product features, strategies, etc. They're super pumped about it. They keep doing that. Then they come back 3 weeks later, and some of you guys are smiling and nodding. You either are the founder or you work for that founder. And you're like, can you please come to my office and tell him this? And 3 weeks later, you're at the exact same spot. And I can't tell you how many founders, when they call me and ask me for advice, when they're not growing or they're not achieving product market fit, I know step one, when I say show me your dashboard or show me your analytics, nothing is instrumented. Because you have to be probably you shouldn't be an entrepreneur if you say, this is my core metric, here's how we're doing, here's some ideas to improve it, let's do those ideas, and it should go up at some point, right? That's the measure part. So if you have not done that part, all the stuff I've told you so far, don't do any of it. Go back to your team, sit down. There's tools out there that I'll get into, but never than today, and will continue to get easier for you guys as founder, is instrument and measure everything you do. Test. This used to be a funny slide until I recently had 2 kids 11 months back to back. But I really think building startups is about testing, sit, and trying shit. It's really it's not that complicated. You just come up with a bunch of ideas, and what's beautiful about it is you don't need to actually be right. You just need to actually define what you think is going to happen, try it, measure it. If it didn't work, start back at the beginning. We have a product lifecycle in Clarity, and it's a 2-week sprint. And we essentially start the end of the last sprint with defining what we're going to do. We start the following week on the 2-week sprint coming up with ideas for what we're going to work on. We test those ideas in the first 3 to 4 days. At the end of that week, we decide which ones are working, which ones are not. The ones that are working, we double down. We focus on those the next week, and we keep doing that iterative process. But the trick is running those tests, those experiments. I don't have a clock. Can anybody?
You're good, you're fine.
All right, Harley. Love that guy. All right, so I'm fine. Cool. So testing is really about defining what you think is going to happen and then doing it and then seeing if you were right. In startup world, there's two zones. 80% of this room is over here, what I call the qualitative feedback zone, meaning that all this all this like measuring stuff really doesn't matter at the beginning. You don't have enough users for it to matter. So you're in qualitative. Qualitative means get out of the effing building and talk to your customer. Right? Steve Blank says this, I say this, I call it surprise and delight. Thursdays, every Thursday I try to call customers, talk to them. I still do that, but a lot, like a ridiculous amount in the beginning. That is where you're trying to understand what the hell you've built, who gives a shit about it, and then build the product to the point where you have enough traffic and then it kind of shifts over to this side, and this is the 20% of the room here, which is qualitative. Or quantitative. Quantitative is measuring. It's the numbers. It's the metrics. It's you have enough data to actually run through scenarios and get statistically significant data sets to make good decisions. But for 80% of you guys, you're over here. So it's really about talking to users, surveys, things that are more kind of subjective. It's the art part of it. And once you've got the art figured out, that's the science. Try. I love trying everything. The beauty of trying is our team is involved, and if they're wrong, it's self-evident. So what's fun is when somebody's like, oh, this is going to work. Oh, yeah, and I'm like, are you sure? This is the idea. Yeah, this is the one. I'll guarantee it. Cool. What do you think the lift's going to be? Ooh, that's a good one, right? So it's a betting. I'm a betting guy. I love betting. So they're like, oh, 20%. Oof, I love 20%. You think you get 20% in 2 weeks? Oh, I could totally get double down. Let's do it. Write it, put it in the story. That's his goal. He does that 3 cycles in a row where he thinks that it's going to do something and it doesn't do it, and everybody else on the team knows that he's like the shittiest idea to make things move guy. Do you think he's going to stick around? No. Like, the beauty of trying a bunch of stuff and having a framework for it is that all the ideas are relatively open, but if you are somebody that back-to-back can't actually come up with things because it's transparent who's moving the needle, then there's this thing called the HIPPO, the highest paid person's opinion always wins. We don't have a HIPPO problem because everybody's opinion matters, but it's kind of like the person who has the best success rate for moving the metric they said they would move is the person that's the star on our team. And it's only by trying, testing, and measuring everything. So the tools I mentioned, Mixpanel, Kissmetrics, Qualaroo, there's a bunch of them. I used to actually have to give them out as reference. If you Google it, don't be too lazy, you'll find them all. Activity streams, I think, this is the ninja stuff. This is the thing that we've been doing for 8 years as a startup, where we log every activity and action that goes on in our system, and we color code it, and we watch what's going on by our users. Why do we do that? Because with colors, you can see patterns. So in the beginning, where you're in the qualitative and you're talking to users and they're giving you, here's the thing about users is they lie to you. Okay? And you guys know this. You've had this person say, man, if you built this feature, I would use this every day. And you're like, really? They're like, oh, yeah. If you build that feature, man, that would unlock it for me. I'm like, okay. So then I usually say, give me $100 and I'll build it. And they're like, no, I don't want to build it. It's like, well, then you don't really want it. Or they say, I use this all the time. You go check the analytics for their account, and they've never even signed in since the time they signed up. So people lie. The beginning, you talk to them. That's a nice thing to do. But then kind of in the middle of measuring and talking is this idea of activity streams where you color code the actions they're doing, and you look for patterns. And in doing that, all the activities in your system, it's kind of like a news feed for your product. A lot of these companies like Mixpanel and Kissmetrics give you this today. They didn't for many years, and we always built it ourselves. We built it at Flowtown, my last company. We built it again at Clarity. And what I love about it is, one time I was working on this product called Timely, and everybody loved it. Timely was a simple idea that you could queue the tweets and share them at the right time. And we would tell you when the right time is, and people loved it. They signed up. We had like 50,000 people sign up. And nobody tweeted. And I was like, how can people understand the benefits, sign up, but not tweet? And when we started looking, and I saw this through the actions, they would sign up, set up their account, but they wouldn't tweet. I started asking them, and they say, I love it, but I just didn't have anything to say. But I bookmarked it, and I'll come back. They don't come back. Don't listen to them. Again, they're lying. But I said, okay, they don't have anything to tweet. What if we gave them something to tweet? Okay, what could I give them? A quote. People love quotes. Now it'd be like funny pictures of cats. But we gave them quotes. We started offering up the top 10 most powerful motivational quotes. We had 70% of the people activate up from 10%. And I wouldn't even known that people weren't tweeting without kind of seeing this anecdotal activity stream, and when they're color coded, you can see the patterns. So I think the activity stream is between the qualitative where you're talking to people and the quant where it's super dashboardy to kind of this nice place to understand how people are using your product. Because again, they'll lie. This is a screenshot of something early. Yeah, this is early Clarity in 2012. And that gives you an example of how we look at the created. So you can follow an account from created, onboarded, et cetera. I probably shouldn't show this because it's private information. Boom. Surveys I've talked a lot about. I'm not even going to talk about it anymore. Survey.io. I use SurveyMonkey because I like to drill down ninja style. This is Qualaru's interface, which is really neat. You can actually understand product flows and survey people based on the behavior and step they're in to understand what's stopping them from going to the next step and fixing it. Funnels. I could talk a whole lot about funnels, but I've got 5 minutes, and I really want to get to the OPN and shareable moments. Funnel metrics, when I showed you the diagram that the lean analytics guys put together, we instrumented everything. And when I showed it to Ben and Alistair, they were like, dude, you guys are pretty much the only people that have done that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You wrote the book. Why would I try to make it up any other way? So, excuse me, this is the visual representation done in metrics broken down by funnel, all on our back end. Growth strategies. 2 major things. OPN, which really should say N, not M. Other people's networks. I got this from the real estate world. You know, when people say, how do you buy real estate? There's a thing called OPM. Other people's money. Nobody's buying their house cash, right? They're using mortgages and they're leveraging other people's money. Well, in growth and distribution, you can do the same thing, right? You have a product, you can look at who has access to your target customer and insert your product into that. Instagram's a great example. I don't know if I have it up there. Yeah, they have it there. They let you take the photo fast, put the filter, and then they'd let you share it on those social networks. Well, as soon as they did that, then the people on those social networks would see the link to Instagram come in, go, wow, this is a beautiful picture. I want to do that too. Sign up, etc. It kept going. Top left is a perfect example from Airbnb. Airbnb had a bunch of people that created these listings, but they need to figure out a way to get distribution for those listings. Well, they just asked the users, where did you go before you use Airbnb? And they said, well, we post on Craigslist. Well, what if all of our customers posted on Craigslist these beautiful Airbnb listing pages and then discovered Airbnb for the booking, leveraging that network? There's the example of YouTube and MySpace. It's historical, right? Clarity, we have a couple. I'll give them to you now because we've pretty much optimized the shit out of them. We use LinkedIn, changing your job on LinkedIn. So if you're an expert on Clarity, we actually built the flow to let you share and create that position on LinkedIn, which is funny. I didn't know people would do it, but I saw it. And they create a position on LinkedIn. Well, what happens on LinkedIn when you change jobs? Everybody gets notified. Then they want to know what the hell's Clarity. We do the same thing with Twitter bios. 60% of people, you wouldn't know this, don't set a link to their Twitter bio. So it's a one-click ad. Well, somebody's looking on Twitter, they see it, they click through and they go to their profile. What's Clarity? OPN is a very powerful, you see it. Now that you know that strategy, look at it in products you love and think about how ways you could build it into your product. Again, get the product to be good. If it sucks, you're kind of screwed. Fix that problem. Once it's good, then start doing this stuff. And I would say start with this, shareable moments. People wonder why things like Basecamp and FreshBooks and others get a lot of distribution. It's very simple. They inherently have a product that is naturally promoted to share with other people, right? If I have an invoicing software, what's the first thing I got to do? Send it to the person to pay me. All of a sudden, that business owner gets this invoice and go, I need to use this. This is beautiful. Basecamp, same thing. How do I get people to collaborate around a project? Dropbox did this with the referral program. In the center, you'll see this for AngelList. AngelList does this beautifully today that if you want now, you can verify your customers. Why do they do that? Because I can add 10,000 customers on AngelList and all of them are going to get an email to verify and they get brought into the flow. So think about that idea. The third one there is Hootsuite. Well, I'm a social media marketing tool. What do I need to do? I need to collaborate. So let's optimize the flow after the person activates, experiences the core value to share that experience with their team. If you think of those 2 strategies, OPN, other people's networks, and shareable moments, that is growth hacking. Nobody will talk about it. All the stuff I told you at the beginning was get you to a point where your product doesn't suck. Once your product doesn't suck, figure out how in the product you can find shareable moments to share with the world, and then also figure out other people's networks that you can insert yourself to get more customers. The last thing and the only thing I want to leave you guys with is a commitment to make no small plans. Thanks for having me today.